Hello everyone. Today I want to share with you a touching story about two men, Tan and Dan, and a single mother named Dieuhan. Dieuhan was walking down her usual path, but today everything felt different. Under the dim light of the evening, she accidentally saw a figure approaching. When their eyes met, old memories flooded back, making her heart race. The person was Dan. His appearance made her feel confused, but also warmed her heart. He was still the same, with his familiar smile, and his eyes gleamed with familiarity. A brief silence passed before Dan moved closer and hugged her. The hug wasn't rushed, but deep, as if he wanted to give her all the love and care that had been forgotten for so long. Dieuhan was surprised, but she didn't pull away. She could feel his warmth, and in that moment, a part of her heart skipped a beat. Despite being tired from work and life, she couldn't deny that this warmth was something she truly needed. After letting go of each other, they stood there looking at one another for a moment. Dieuhan smiled softly, not saying much, because she knew there was no need for many words. She had gotten used to doing everything on her own. The sense of independence was something she always took pride in, but this meeting made her realize that sometimes there are things you can't do alone. Dan looked at her, his eyes full of surprise and emotion. He realized that she had gone through many struggles, but still stood strong and resilient. That was something he couldn't help but respect. After a moment of silence, Dan spoke. He talked about the years that had passed, the things he had gone through, and the joy of meeting her again. During this time, Dieuhan didn't say much, only offering a gentle smile. Everyone had their own stories, their own struggles, but in this moment, everything seemed to blend together, creating a special connection. While Dan and Dieuhan were talking, another figure stood quietly from afar, observing the scene. It was Tan. He stood some distance away, with his eyes clouded, and a sense of emptiness rose within him. Tan hadn't expected the meeting to happen under these circumstances. He stood there, his heart filled with conflicting thoughts. He didn't want to disturb this meeting, didn't want to be the one to break the peaceful moment between the two old friends. But seeing Dan standing in front of Dieuhan, he couldn't help but feel a sense of defeat. Although he knew that Han's feelings for him weren't something easily changed, he couldn't stop feeling a sense of emptiness, as if he had missed his chance. Still, Tan couldn't deny that he still loved Han, and that love, even though suppressed for so long, still quietly burned in his heart. In that moment, Tan suddenly remembered the bowl of rice he had cooked for Han. It was a simple dish, but it contained so much effort and affection. That's why he couldn't just walk away, even though everything around him was becoming complicated. He decided to hold the bowl of rice in his hands and walk towards Dieuhan, even though he still felt anxious and uncertain. Throughout the process, Tan couldn't stop thinking about the past, about the old memories. He took slow steps, glancing at the two people talking. He didn't want to interrupt their meeting, but he also couldn't miss the chance to show his care, even if it was just once more. Dan looked at Dieuhan, a feeling of surprise rising within him. He couldn't believe how strong and mature the woman he knew had become. Every time his eyes glanced at her face, he could more clearly sense that change. She was no longer the fragile, easily exhausted girl she once was. Now, Dieuhan resembled a woman who was steady and resilient, someone who couldn't be swayed by anything. Dan felt both proud and admiring. She wasn't the same person anymore. She had learned to face every challenge on her own, without relying on anyone. These qualities made him respect her even more, and yet, they also made him feel a tinge of longing. Dan couldn't stop looking at her. He realized that she had overcome so many challenges over the years. She not only faced the outside world with strength, but also confronted herself. He knew that, no matter what difficulty arose, Dieuhan would never back down, for within her was an invisible strength that was incredibly powerful. Dan gazed at Dieuhan, his eyes seeming to want to say something, but then he fell silent. These emotions couldn't be fully expressed in words. He could only stand there, admiring her, as if he wanted to remember this moment for the rest of his life. It had been a long time since he felt this way. The feeling that, no matter how life pushed and pulled, old relationships could be revived, and they could still bring fresh emotions to each person. Dan stood there, holding the bowl of rice in his hands, a feeling of confusion and unfamiliarity spreading throughout his body. He knew that he couldn't just stand there and watch forever, and he couldn't leave without doing something. Step by step, he moved closer. Dan couldn't ignore the feeling that this might be his last chance to do something. As Dan got closer, he still held the bowl of rice in his hand. He couldn't avoid the feeling of embarrassment, but he knew he couldn't back down. Then Dan's gaze turned toward Dan. Although the tension was palpable in this moment, instead of creating an uncomfortable atmosphere, Dan smiled. Dan spoke in a gentle tone, creating a more relaxed space. Dan felt a little less tense, and part of him also felt relieved. Dan and Dan continued exchanging light-hearted teasing remarks in a humorous way. After a few playful words, the atmosphere became much more comfortable. Even though there were conflicts and mixed emotions between them, respect and understanding had helped them find harmony again. There was no more intense competition or confrontation, only a deep understanding of each other. Dan no longer felt like an outsider. He felt that despite the challenges and difficulties, they could still face each other with respect and sincerity. And in that moment, Dan suddenly realized something important. Love wasn't always about competing, but about sharing and respecting each other. He didn't need to be the winner in this love contest. He only needed to know that he had done his best to express his feelings. Now all three of them stood together in a much more relaxed atmosphere. The tension that had been there before seemed to have disappeared, replaced by laughter and light-hearted conversations. Dan, and Dieuhan, each with their own feelings, were now able to share not only joyful moments, but also deep emotions and memories within their hearts. Jokes and playful teasing made the atmosphere warm, as if there were no divisions between them. All that remained was a sincere friendship, despite having gone through challenges and the trials of time. Dan looked at Han, a gentle smile on his lips. Throughout the conversation, Dieuhan also felt much more at ease. Although she had gone through many difficulties and challenges, this moment made her realize that the connection with old friends was precious. She felt as though she was returning to a part of the past where friendship and sincere emotions were still solid values. Dan, looking at Dieuhan, suddenly realized that time had changed many things. She was no longer the weak girl he once knew. She had become much stronger, having learned how to stand firm in a world full of challenges. He couldn't help but respect her resilience. Don, looking at them, also felt that in this moment, despite all the changes, friendship and mutual respect were still the most important values. The atmosphere between the three of them was no longer awkward or tense. They shared old stories, past memories, and then laughter filled the air, gentle and natural. Though each of them had their own thoughts, they all knew that friendship and mutual respect would help them overcome any difficulties. Dieuhan felt a warmth in her heart. Although life had pushed her through countless challenges, now, sitting with her friends, she felt loved and appreciated. She no longer had to do everything on her own. She knew that there were friends who would always be by her side, ready to help when she needed it. Each of the three had their own story, but they all shared one thing: love and mutual respect. They were no longer strangers, but close friends who understood and appreciated each other more than ever. And in this moment, they knew that no matter how life changed, love and friendship would always be the strongest constants.
Dù đã trải qua nhiều khó khăn và thử thách, nhưng giây phút này lại khiến cô cảm nhận ra rằng sự kết nối với những người bạn là điều quý giá. Cô cảm thấy mình như được trở lại một phần của quá khứ, nơi mà tình bạn và tình cảm chân thành là những giá trị vững chắc. Thành nhìn vào Hân, chợt nhận ra rằng thời gian đã thay đổi rất nhiều. Cô không còn là cô gái yếu đuối mà anh từng biết nữa. Cô đã mạnh mẽ hơn rất nhiều, đã học được cách đứng vững trong một thế giới đầy thử thách. Anh không thể không tôn trọng sự kiên cường của cô. Danh nhìn vào họ cũng cảm thấy rằng trong khoảnh khắc này, dù mọi thứ đã thay đổi, nhưng tình bạn và sự tôn trọng lẫn nhau vẫn là giá trị quan trọng nhất. Không khí giữa ba người bây giờ không còn sự ngượng ngùng hay căng thẳng. Họ cùng nhau chia sẻ những câu chuyện cũ, những kỷ niệm đã qua, và rồi những tiếng cười vang lên, nhẹ nhàng và tự nhiên. Mặc dù trong lòng mỗi người đều có những suy nghĩ riêng, nhưng họ đều biết rằng tình cảm và sự tôn trọng lẫn nhau sẽ giúp họ vượt qua mọi khó khăn. Diệu Hân cảm thấy một sự ấm áp trong lòng. Dù cuộc sống đã đưa cô bao thử thách, nhưng giờ đây, khi ngồi bên cạnh những người bạn, cô cảm thấy mình được yêu thương và trân trọng. Cô không cần phải làm mọi thứ một mình nữa. Cô biết rằng có những người bạn sẽ luôn ở bên cô, sẵn sàng giúp đỡ khi cô cần. Cả ba người, mỗi người một câu chuyện, nhưng tất cả đều có chung một điểm, đó là tình yêu và sự tôn trọng lẫn nhau. Họ không còn là những người xa lạ, mà là những người bạn thân thiết, hiểu rõ và trân trọng nhau hơn bao giờ hết. Và trong khoảnh khắc này, họ biết rằng dù cuộc sống có thay đổi thế nào, tình yêu và tình bạn sẽ luôn là những yếu tố vững chắc nhất.